Back Valley for 1 week only. He knows about the metaverse. He's going to talk about the tipping point. He's going to give an incredible speech, and I'm putting him under no pressure whatsoever to deliver now because he's come all of this way just to be here with you today. Please give Mr. Joe Calder a very warm round of applause.
Thank you, Adam. Much appreciated. So great to be here, by the way. All right, so as you know, I'm Joe Calder. I'm from Silicon Valley. It's wonderful to be back in London. I'm also a member of Cambridge, as you'll see here. Let's see how this will work. Here's a little bit about myself. I enjoy a variety of technologies. I grew up in Silicon Valley. Early on, I began my journey in Silicon Valley learning from Steve Jobs. It was really a wonderful time. Back then, interesting enough, there was only one internet company when I got started, and that was Netscape. So it was a wonderful time to get to know Mark Andreessen and just be inspired. There was only one store you could really go to, one place to really get to know that experience. I had some fun moments to talk to Steve Ballmer about the future of the internet in terms of, back then it was referred to as the information superhighway. Should we go with the biz talk or should we go with open source? Interesting times. So once again, I'm based out of Silicon Valley. I'm a fellow with the British Computer Society. I'm also a member of Cambridge. A few things about myself, as you can see there. So for today, the focus of today is really to talk about the Metaverse moment and what does it take to achieve this moment. The road ahead is something that's going to be really interesting. So we'll be talking about the road, exploring, leveraging, and finally more exploring. So when we think about the Metaverse, obviously, you all know this already, how it started out as far as the inspiration from science fiction. And where we are today in terms of the Metaverse, there's still a lot to learn. There's still a lot of difficult moments to overcome. But most of all, there's a lot of wonderful possibilities that we're looking to see in the coming years. So when we're thinking about the Metaverse, we have to think about how the Metaverse is not going to just simply happen. It's going to require a moment of that makes sense to the general populace. It may make sense to everyone here today, but it needs to make sense to, if we walk outside right now, walk on any street in London, does it make sense? And that is when it all comes together. So to really understand achieving the Metaverse moment, we should take a look at some of the prior moments. So when we think about the landscape of prior tech moments, we have to begin with Netscape. So why was Netscape so important? It basically brought the internet to life. It gave it a graphical user interface. It took it from just being a black screen with white or blue letters and numbers to something that was animated, that had a text markup, and it inspired further types of interaction, a decentralized experience, and that is the key for the Netscape moment. So where did that leave us then? That was 1.0. So what did 1.0 leave us to? 1.0 left us to, where do we go next? And where we went next was with the iPhone moment. The iPhone moment was the breakthrough when your phone simply wasn't just a device for limited means. It was an opportunity to bring about where your email, your camera, various new experiences with apps started to take place. That was also interesting because at the time, for example, the Nokia 6131 was the hottest phone of the time back then, just prior to this moment. Why so? Because it was a flip phone. People really were intrigued by it. What happened then? So the industry moved from being a device, physical, tangible experience, to being as far as where the interest was, to being an ecosystem-driven experience. So the ecosystem is where everyone moves. So the competition moved from being, what kind of new layout does your phone have, to now being, no, it's not that anymore. That's not the competition. The competition is now ecosystem-driven. So that has led us to where we are today. So when we think about the 2.0 experience, we now have two large ecosystems out there. We have iOS and Android. So when we think about achieving the metaverse moment, we have to keep that in mind. Let's just go back to that for a moment. So the metaverse isn't going to simply happen once again. It's going to require, how do we connect all of this together? What we see currently in the metaverse is that there are a number of experiences, wonderful worlds being created, but we have to ask ourselves, are they over complicated at this point? Remember, it has to make sense to the average user out there. Another thing also about the metaverse is what do we see as far as the possibilities in the future? How do we achieve an extensible reality experience? The metaverse, augmented and virtual reality experiences, they take place with different types of devices. Yes, one of those is, of course, is the VR experience for an immersive experience, and emerging glasses. Those are great, but think about this: how long would you want to wear those devices on your head? Glasses, yes, you can wear sunglasses or regular glasses all day, yes, but at some point you take them off. What about VR headsets? I could tell you from first-hand knowledge in Silicon Valley that those involved in this experience could just say that one of the challenges is that even to test these devices, testers and those involved in any type of this experience don't want to wear it very long. So they only put it on for like 20 minutes or whatever a week, and just do as much of that in the 2D world as possible. So again, how do we get people to the 3D world? We're going to have to think about where these devices to connect to the 3D world will be. What do you normally wear that you feel comfortable wearing throughout the day most of the time? If you have it, maybe a watch, maybe a wristband. So just think about other possibilities as far as achieving extensible experiences that are not just simply going to be worn for 20 minutes or less. So there's going to be a lot of research you'll see in the coming years that's going to show the other possibilities of achieving augmented and virtual reality experiences. When we think about the metaverse in general, one thing that people have an issue with is they're not too crazy about the immersive virtual reality experience. There are certain limitations to that. One of them is, for example, the eye spacing. A lot of those experiences are not really designed for people that either have broader, their eye spacing is a little farther out or closer in. So we have to think more about what is going to be possible for the general populace. In the long run, VR will help us achieve the augmented experience in a larger context. But think of it more as a gateway, and it's going to definitely have a viable future for years and years to come. But it's not going to be the only, it's going to lead us to greater moments of the metaverse. That's the way to think about VR. It's going to definitely have a purpose. I'll give you one of the examples here. As we've experienced with COVID has disabled a lot of interaction in person and created many issues with supply chains and many issues with partner engagements. One issue where VR can be really a great value would be, for example, the semiconductor industry, or where you send teams to other locations, and those teams normally would send, for example, a team of 5 or 10 people, say from Siemens or Lambs or something like that, to a client location for an installation of a physical site. With VR, during the advent of COVID and during this period, we have seen where now this use of VR to achieve this by sending just one person or maybe 2 at best has accelerated to quite an interesting point. So achieving the metaverse, part of that is we're going to have to think about how do these technologies converge. Another thing that we always have with us, and that was achieved with the iPhone moment, was the fact that your phone is an extension of your hand, essentially. It is always with you, and most times, I mean, I always keep my phone. It's almost, you most likely keep it by your bedside or whatever. I mean, it's just always there with you. And if you don't have it, it just feels like, hey, there's something missing. So again, the recommendation I would say is for the metaverse moment, don't just think VR and don't just simply only think about AR, but think about other locations. And also another challenging thing to achieve the metaverse moment would be the complexity of placing cameras and other key components in a device. You have the goal of this right now is to compress them further and further. So if you see some of the examples out there that have been introduced recently, they are fairly large devices. You see prototypes from some of the key companies in Silicon Valley. I'm sure you can think about the names of those companies. But the idea is the logic of cameras and the logic of what the computational abilities of those devices needs to be further compressed. It needs to be more seamless and more of an integrated experience. Early versions of the metaverse currently show that we're looking at more of a mesh technology, more of avatars, but that is just the early preview. To really achieve the ultimate goal of the metaverse, to draw in the masses, we're going to have to think about digital twinning. Digital twins are really important because they're going to bring so much more value to society in general. Just think about this. One thought when thinking about digital twinning that came to mind was that imagine this doctor that's 90 years old, renowned, is an expert at separating conjoined twins. This doctor still has a lot of great value to contribute to the medical science. With digital twinning, imagine a future where this doctor can do a surgery in London and then 2 days later in Cape Town, South Africa, and next week in Tokyo, followed by Sydney, Australia. Just imagine that possibility where this doctor who's 90 may not travel as much, but can go and lead teams of doctors to do something amazing for humanity. So the possibilities of the metaverse are an opportunity for us to extend the possibilities of humanity and how we could bring greater value to humanity at various stages of life. Sorry, I just flew in yesterday, so I'm a little bit tired still. Apologies for that, the time difference. Still, right now it's 1 p.m. I could tell you a few things about Silicon Valley if you like. I live in a town called Atherton, California, which is, you could look it up, but basically it's where you'll find 80% of tech founders and CEOs, and it's called the most expensive zip code in America for a reason, because of Silicon Valley. But I'm happy to share any moments you'd like to know about Silicon Valley, but most of all, really, about achieving the metaverse moment. I went to Cambridge University because I felt that, and I still feel that London has a pivotal place in the tech future of the world. How is that so? Just look at where industry is going. After Silicon Valley, we have New York, and then we have Boston, and then it's London. That's on a global scale. Boston and New York clearly benefit from Silicon Valley, just being part of the same nation, 5 hours apart. But London is emerging more so, and there's a lot of great opportunities emerging in the London greater area, as well as Cambridge. I think of the general vicinity to include Cambridge as well. So thank you for your time. Please share any questions you may have. I'm happy to discuss anything with you as far as these topics. So. All right, well, hey, thank you so much. So great to be here once again. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hang on, wait, Joe. Any questions? Any questions? Look at that, you've stunned everybody to silence. First out the back. No nonsense. Does everybody know what the Metaverse Moment is? Any questions for Joe? He's all the way out here from Silicon Valley. You might never get this chance again, folks. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'll just give you a little tip. I work on one of the only teams that's really exploring the future of the metaverse and this at the very tip of it. So when I give you these tips, take it to heart. Yes, hello. Question.
Hang on, wait 1 second, fella. No problem. Or you
Anyway, I'll try now. Yeah, cool. Where do you see, and apologies if you spoke a little bit about it, I may have missed it, but where do you see augmented reality sitting within the metaverse moment? Because I think far too often in this conversation, people only talk about virtual reality as a metaverse platform and completely forget augmented, which is primed today to have a metaverse moment of billions of people easily. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know where you see augmented reality in this.
Wonderful question. Thank you for that. Virtual reality has had more time for definition. Augmented reality is still being defined in terms of the possibilities. Right now, when we think about the Ray-Ban glasses that Meta introduced, for example, there's not a lot of adoption in that context yet. Augmented reality, on a personal note, I feel will be more aligned with the possibilities of digital twinning, because the metaverse moment, there needs to be an awe factor. There needs to be a factor where people really see the intrinsic value beyond what they already know. That's what that moment is about. It cannot simply be that it's something. I don't see the metaverse moment or with augmented reality or virtual reality happening just by avatars and things that we've seen like 15 years ago. It's going to take digital twinning where, for example, if Adam was on the other side of the world right now, his digital twin could be here, and it's those same dimensions, and we'd feel that Adam is here in the physical sense. So augmented reality needs to be a driver towards that. It is driving towards that. But right now it's being overshadowed a lot by virtual reality, because virtual reality we've had more time with. People, generally speaking, understand better, and augmented reality is still being further defined. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? We can take one more. Or not, as the case may be. Joe, thank you very much. Give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you.